65-year-old dream still haunts me. I am 70. I had this dream when I was about 5. Still stays in my mind. Maybe someone can figure out the meaning. Here goes. Dream is dark. I am walking through an enclosed maze, similar to a funhouse. Walls are black. I am myself in this dream and seeing it from my POV. I walk the maze and a bit later I notice yellowish light ahead and around the corner. I turn the corner and am in a large, mostly red room. In the middle of the room there is a simple black coffin. Lid is up and facing me. To see what is in the coffin I need to work my way around it. I do. I look inside. It is me. Laid out dead. I remember being shocked awake. That's it. Never had that dream again, but never forgot it. Anyone else have something brought up out of the blue and somebody mentions it out of absolutely nowhere somewhere else? I'm not sure if premonitions is the correct flair, but it fits this the closest. A few minutes ago, I was watching a video and they said something that nobody would just say or text out of the blue, but about 5 seconds after hearing it in the video, one of my friend texts me the absolute exact thing that they said in the video. Note that we had not texted the entire day, and do not talk about this at all. This happens to me a lot along with extremely specific deja vu. It will be the most random things that nobody would talk about, but you hear it earlier in the day, and somebody else also proceeds to bring it up to you for absolutely no reason. Anyone else have this happen to them a lot? Brookdale Lodge in California. Apparently a small girl drowned in the river that goes through the hotel more than 30 years ago. The hotel has been out of service ever since, but they let us take photos through one of the doors. Guests and staff from the new hotel that was built right next to it apparently reported weird noises and screams coming from it. The bartender of the place told us all kinds of spooky stories about it, but I feel like he tried a little too hard. The spooky thing is that a few years ago a boy almost drowned in the same river, and he said that he played with a small girl prior to being pinned down in the river. I didn't see or hear nothing but thought you guys might appreciate it. Peace out. Childhood experiences that we thought they were normal. Did anybody had any experience during their childhood that you thought it was normal back then, and now when you think about it it freaks you out? For example, 20 years ago when I was a little kid, I would always make paper airplanes. On one occasion, I vividly remember some paper airplanes disappearing on the floor. While looking at them, and appearing on the other side of the room, I brushed it off as magic. Being a 9-year-old kid, that was my only explanation. On other many occasions, I would hear someone calling my name, in which there would be no one in the house except for me and my parents or one of them. When I asked my parents who called my name, they would deny it. I also would brush it off as echo, haven't knowing what exactly is an echo. Creepy guy taped up little kids. Back when I was in the 3rd grade, there was a hill with a playground at the top. One day, while everyone was playing at the park, as it was recess, this middle-aged man wearing nothing but cargo shorts came to the bottom of the hill and leaned over a fence that was there. He then began to call kids over to him. When kids came over, he wrapped them up in blue tape, mainly around their hands. This went on for about 15 minutes when the 4th grade science teacher, the saint she is, began to run down to the guy. Now, this woman can be very intimidating when she wants to be. She later became the principal. Anyway, the second this guy saw her, he walked away. He obviously didn't care about getting caught. So, creepy blue tape guy, let's not meet. Dead smell. Before 2 girls died about 2 weeks ago, I smelled a dead smell on my terrace. Smelled it for 2 days. It was very strong. I told my mother and sister to check if they could smell it too, and they said they didn't, that they didn't feel any aroma. 2 days later, a young woman, late 20s, who lived approximately 3 minutes away from my house committed suicide by hanging herself. The suicide happened after the smell. This smell thing happened again 4 days ago. The same thing happened, the same aroma, no difference between both experiences. Just this time the smell lasted 1 day instead of 2. My mom didn't smell anything, again. Yesterday a 27-year-old woman suffered a heart attack after drinking antidepressants. She lived 1 to 2 minutes from my house. Does anyone have a similar experience? Any explanation for this? Did my son predict a death? When my kids were younger, they stayed with an older widow when I went to work. When my oldest, Joey, was 5, my youngest, Micah, was 3. Another little boy, Eddie, was just starting to walk. The summer before Joey started kindergarten, Micah started becoming upset, saying that he was going to be at daycare alone when school started. We assured him repeated that Eddie would be with him, but he argued. This went on for weeks. A few days before school started, we got the call that when Eddie was staying with a relative, he wandered into a pond and drowned. We were so upset and carefully explained it to the kids. Micah just looked at us. He wasn't shocked at all. He just said he's going to be alone with a look like, "See, I told you." We were also shaken by Eddie's death and Micah's statements. Coincidence? Does anyone else cry because of paranormal stuff? This has always happened to me. If I talk about or read about or see footage of true paranormal stuff, sometimes my eyes water a lot. But I'm not really crying, if that makes sense. I get this weird feeling that I'm unsure how to describe. It's not really a bad feeling. I don't feel sad or scared. I find paranormal stuff fascinating. My eyes just water and I can't control it. It's weird, but it's kind of a good feeling, in a way. Like it's more interesting than anything else, I guess. And it doesn't happen if I read fiction or watch horror movies. Only if I'm thinking about true things, and only sometimes. It's like I feel some kind of connection. That might sound stupid, but that's the best way I can think to describe it. It's intense but makes me feel oddly calm at the same time. Does anyone think people or their souls are sent here for a specific purpose? I feel that I was meant to be servant or a helper and not to do things for myself. I seem to feel other people's feelings or moods. I have a knack for helping people in just the way they need at the right time. I do a lot of service work, etc. If or when I ever try to do anything for myself, it seems to end badly. For example, I decided to take better care of myself and my appearance. I started wearing makeup again and immediately got a rash on my face. If I try to exercise, I get an injury, but if someone needs help with something physically challenging, my body never gives out or gets injured. Things only seem to go well when I'm doing for others and not myself. Doomsday posts or feelings of doom need to stop. I said what I said, and I'll gladly take the downvotes for it. This sub isn't meant for an end of the world. Or a vague anyone else feeling doom? Type posts once or twice every single day. It's tiresome and annoying to see so much. You can't elaborate on your feelings because you're either A, faking it for circle jerk upvotes, or B, it's because you have anxiety caused by the couple terrible things that have happened. I'm sure there are plenty of people that agree with me, and it really needs to stop. As a sensitive, I can assure you I haven't felt anything out of the ordinary as of late, actually for months now. And seeing these, quite frankly, half-assed posts on a sub I dearly love and enjoy, all the time, is tiresome. Elevator lady. Okay guys, this just happened today, September 5th, 2020, 6:50 a.m. I'm at work. I work at some luxurious APTs in uptown Dallas. So we have a single elevator. I go and get on it and it's completely empty. I press the 4th floor button, so I get to the 4th floor, exit the elevator and look back, and there's no one there. As soon as the door was closing, I realized I forgot one of my tools, so the door closes. I press the button immediately and the door opens. A lady comes out with a weird face. Keys look like they were almost popping out of her eye sockets. I got goosebumps all over my body, and she gets out the elevator, walks a couple of steps. I get in scared and try to close door fast, and when I look outside the elevator, she vanished in front of me. Ever saw a dead loved one in your dreams and those dreams felt damn real? My father passed away from cancer last November. In his last stage, he went through hell. Like suffering from multiple seizures, full body infection and intense pain to the point where he went unconscious. As a result, we wouldn't be able to say goodbye. In my local culture, it's believed after death, the spirit of a person wanders around in their house for 13 days before finally departing to their world. I was not a staunch believer of it until on my 5th day. I had a dream in which I saw my dad in his last stage sitting in bed telling me from now on I have to take care of myself and my mom. He hugged me and bid me farewell, saying he doesn't have much time and is going to die. I woke up with tears in my eyes. That dream felt so goddamn real. Have anyone had similar experiences? Excuse me, one of my classmates in grad school had an odd habit. Whenever he walked into an empty room, he'd whisper, "Excuse me." When I asked him why, he said it was a superstition in the country his parents had emigrated from. You were supposed to say that in case there was a ghost in the room. It was polite. I recently relocated for a new job. On the day of my move, after cramming all my stuff into a U-Haul, I went back up to my apartment one last time to make sure I hadn't left anything behind. The place felt so empty, as if it had been abandoned for years. And without the music I usually had playing in the background as I went about my daily business, it was eerily quiet. More to break the silence than anything else, I whispered, "Excuse me." A voice whispered back, "Don't worry about it. Fa friend's boss caught some interesting CCTV, crosspost from r/paranormal, though it'll probably go up here first. Throwaway account because I don't want weird message on my main. My friend's boss recently moved into a new place and was experiencing some weird activity, footsteps at night, things being moved, electronics being turned on, etc. She set up some motion-activated CCTV cameras inside the house to see if she could catch anything and ended up getting some really interesting footage of what may be an apparition. As far as I know, the footage is not doctored in any way and the person who caught it is neither versed in such editing nor the kind of person to fake such a thing. Apparently she was very freaked out by the whole experience. Video 1, https://youtube.be/fp-3lznbkm8. Video 2, https://youtube.be/t3k93tjp7e. Grandma tried to serve ghosts coffee. My grandma used to tell me stories about when she lived in the house my dad grew up in. She didn't realize it, but she was a very powerful medium, so she would see things. Well, one of her stories was one morning she was coming downstairs to the kitchen. When she walked in, there were three ladies sitting at her table clear as day. They were talking to each other and then looked at Grandma. She smiled and said hello and they exchanged pleasantries. Grandma, the good hostess she was, offered them coffee. They said that they would love some. Grandma went to make the coffee with he back to the labbies. When she turned back around, they were gone. I always thought that she was a badass. Miss you, Gram. Red heart. Has anyone experienced cities with bad energy? Wondering about other people's experiences with feeling certain negative energies when visiting places. I grew up outside of a moderate-sized town that we would go to every now and then to get groceries and such. Never really noticed anything whenever I was younger, but years after moving away and becoming sensitive to outside energies, every time I go back, I get a really weird feeling of dread/sorrow/maliciousness. It comes on after coming into city limits, goes away when leaving. The town was a center for racial crimes back in the day, and still currently has a violent status. Would things like this infect the whole town? It's also near the Caddo Lake area in Texas, so Native American history could help influence such a feeling, I imagine? Just looking for thoughts or similar feelings. Have you ever met someone who felt otherworldly and non-human in a good way, like to you they felt very angelic, directly inspired by the post here where users talked about when they felt they sensed the inverse? Baptized as a baby, raised in a faithful Christian up into my teen years. Once considered myself an agnostic atheist. After taking into inventory the things my father has told me, if he's telling the truth, it's undeniable that there is a spiritual dimension out there. But that's something I'll probably elaborate on in another post here later. The only thing I have to start off this topic off with is this girl who I once knew. I've talked about her before. I swear, thinking back about her having this emotional aura of love and care, I don't know. 23 years of life isn't very long, but I don't think I've never felt that type of aura any other time in my life. Maybe it's just my emotions making my brain go crazy. Have you ever met someone who just felt evil, dangerous, not human at all, like the person is seemingly normal, but just gives horrible vibes? Example. One of my hobbies is running, and one day I went for a nightly run. I was at my city's park when all of a sudden I felt uneasy and with a feeling of impending doom. I looked at my left and a woman was sitting on one of the park benches, staring at me. She wasn't dressed weird or anything like that. Physically she was just a normal woman in her 30s, but the instant I looked at her, my instincts kicked back and my whole body screamed, "Get away!" She was dressed in a shirt and jeans, with a purse. Her hair was medium length and dirty blonde. Completely normal. To this day, I have no clue about what happened. I can't stop thinking about it. Okay, so this is a weird experience I had 3 years ago. I was half asleep in my ex-boyfriend's bed and I was thinking about breaking up with him, and I just thought, nah, I can't be bothered with the hassle, just see how it goes, and then I heard a voice inside my head, what wasn't mine, that said, what about Chris? I didn't know a Chris at this point and was like, what? But I got this overwhelming feeling that I had to break up with my ex. A few months later, after this was all forgotten about, I met Chris. He is now my husband and we bought a house and we've literally traveled all over the world in the time we've been together. He's my soulmate. I don't know how to explain this. Anyone got any ideas? I don't want to go to sleep. When I was young, my mother would always read me bedtime stories to help me sleep. When the story was over, I would tell my mom, I don't want to go to sleep, the monsters will get me. She would pull the cover over my head and whisper, now the monsters can't get you. 2 days ago I was in a car crash, now I lay in a hospital bed. My mother has come to read me bedtime stories again. She finished the story, but now she whispered in my ear, please say you don't want to sleep, please don't go to sleep. I could hear her crying but I couldn't see it. Then I saw her pull the covers over my head again, just like when I was a kid. As my eyes closed I could finally sleep. I don't buy the explanation that dreams are just a random collection of waking thoughts, at least not all of them. I had a dream last night that reminded me of just how otherworldly, how intricate these dream worlds can be. On a deeper level, I guess they could be getting at some of my subconscious feelings, but the dream scenarios themselves aren't made up. They can't be. There's no way my brain could randomly make up some of the that I experience in dreams. These aren't images, people, or scenarios I come even close to seeing in my daily life. These aren't images of my home or any place I've seen in real life. So where did they come from? Ultimately, we may never know the real reason behind dreams. But let's just say I have a very difficult time believing the scientific explanation. I think it's highly possible dreams could be gateways to parallel universes or other planes of consciousness. I glitched. I woke up from a nap today. As I woke up, I sat straight up on my bed and fondled for a lighter so I could have a smoke. I remembered I left it outside in the car, so I threw on my slides and proceeded to walk downstairs, through the kitchen and out the front door. I passed through the kitchen and seen some candy my daughter had from her daycare, a Snickers bar, pack of Skittles and a few Starburst. I grabbed the Skittles and put them in my pocket to enjoy later. As soon as I opened my front door, I immediately sat up in the bed. I felt lost for a second, thinking I was dreaming. I sat on the edge of the bed and checked my pockets to find a pack of Skittles. I glitched. I heard my aunt last Monday. My aunt/best friend had a massive stroke. We were more like sisters than aunt/niece. She was airlifted 3 hours away, but it was too late. We removed her from life support last Wednesday and she passed away this afternoon. I went to her house to get some things of hers for the funeral. I had my dogs and her dog with me. They all stopped in the dining room and *kicked their ears and did the head tilt thing dogs do. I stopped what I was doing and heard her talking and laughing in her bedroom. I then heard a male voice answer her and laugh. Her father-in-law passed in the house several years ago, while in home hospice, so I think it may have been him. It gave me chills, but also comforted me to hear her happy. I knew literally everything. A few years ago I was on my phone in my room, probably talking to my friends or something, when I suddenly just put it away and stared in front of me. I felt like I saw everything, like I knew everything about the world, how everything works and everything that has happened and will happen. I remember that it felt like I just suddenly had all the knowledge flash before my eyes. Then, like half a second later, I forgot it all. All that was left was a feeling that I still can't understand, but I want to know it all again. I cried after that moment. I don't know if it was too much for me or if I was happy to have known so much. Has anyone else had a similar experience? I made a map of all the haunted locations in Australia. You can find the map here, https://drive.google.com/open, ID equals 14KED2VWO /_472WC254 phase 6Y/ or 346WF and USB equals sharing. I'd love to know if there's any I've missed. I've tried to separate them into categories: hotels, parks, private residences, etc. If there's any mistakes, which I'm sure there are, please let me know. Don't go visit any of these locations until lockdown restrictions have been lifted, please. Stay safe, stay healthy. Much love. Jane. Edit. If anyone has any recommendations for map-making apps or programs, I'd love to hear them. Edit 2. If you click on the location pin, it should list my source in the description. I realize now, though, that they links don't work on mobile. I'm not sure about desktop. I'll go through and add brief descriptions to each listing when I get a sec. Edit 3, link to, California, https://www.reddit.com/r/made_map I pretend. When I wish my wife good morning, I'm just pretending. When I thank her for making breakfast, I'm just pretending. When she sees me off to work, I'm just pretending. When I get a call from home and say how much I miss her, I'm just pretending. When I come home and eat dinner, I'm just pretending. When her parents call, saying they want to visit for the first time in years, I'm just pretending. When the neighbors ask how I'm doing since the accident, I have to pretend. When I draw the curtains to make sure no one can see, I have to pretend. When my wife begins to smell, I have to pretend. When my wife begins to decompose, I have to pretend. When my wife wishes me good night, I have to pretend. Because if I stop pretending, the creature that is moving her corpse might stop pretending too. I really hate my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is one of those people who everyone instinctively gravitate towards. He is always making jokes that will get the whole room laughing. I despise the man as he always gives off a serial killer vibe and always seems to be undressing me with his eyes. Every family event is always dominated by him as he loves to be the center of attention. I asked my family to keep him subdued at this event as I wanted it to be all about my family for once. I was forced to watch as he did a 10-minute act in front of everyone. My entire family gave him a standing ovation when he was finished, while he stood there smiling at me. The applause finally died down and he thanked everyone for enjoying his ventriloquist act, before placing my 2-month-old baby back in the coffin. I sat in the middle of a fairy ring. And this morning I saw this weird entity in my room. A fairy ring has been growing in my backyard around my tree. I know the lore behind fairy rings. And I said, you know what? F***ck it, let's see if it's legit or not. I sat in the ring of mushrooms for about 5 minutes before I got bored and got up. Nothing happened. This morning I wake up and notice this black mass just chilling in my room on my ceiling with these multicolored lights, kinda like a spider. It was there for about 5 minutes just chilling there. Which just so happens to be coincidental the time frame I sat in the fairy ring. I figured getting abducted by the fae is better than working a 40-hour work week, lol. Anyone have any experiences like this after sitting in a fairy ring? I saw a fairy, so I was walking my puppy. I was looking down at the ground, and when I look up there's a weird green bug. At first I figured it was a flying praying mantis, so I just stood there watching it for a couple seconds. Then I saw that it had a little green dress and a little head with short brown hair, but its wings weren't what I pictured a fairy's wings to look like. It looked more like a hummingbird wings. So I stood there with my mouth hanging open and I watched it land, but when I stepped over to find it, it was gone, and there was also weird white little bugs or something that appeared out of nowhere. Anyways, I'm 14 and I downloaded Reddit so I could openly talk about this. I figured this platform wouldn't assume I'm insane. I would absolutely love to hear stories first, second, or even third hand from indigenous people. Doesn't necessarily have to be creepy, but I love the cryptid stories you guys have. I grew up hearing about many Dreamtime stories through school. I'm white, but I was a kid then, and of course they were all positive/uplifting ones. I want to hear the stories and tales about the bad ones or creepy ones and people's experiences with them. There was a post here, I think, about little people throwing rocks at OP while they were fishing, and it turns out that these people, if they exist, don't like people fishing in their rivers, aka taking their food. Multiple people have documented them all over the world, and almost every culture has some variation of these little ape-like people and their existence. There's also a poster here who is indigenous, and I profusely apologize that I can't remember where he's from, but I know he lives in a very cold climate and hunts for food. He has fascinating stories about various beings he has seen where he lives. If you hear your name called while home alone, don't reply. I wake up from my dream to someone in my house calling my name. Groggily, I register that the voice belongs to my grandmother. I glance over at the clock, 7 p.m. It sounds like she's ascending the stairs, her voice is getting closer. I rub my eyes and yawn. My nap ruined, I let out an annoyed, "Yeah, Grandma?" The steps stop and my name is repeated again, drawn out, the pitch lowering quickly into an inhuman, guttural roar. I freeze in place as footsteps pound up the remaining stairs quickly and a massive, disproportionate, long-armed figure squeezes itself through my doorway, still screaming my name as its mouth drops open to its stomach and I catch a glimpse of what remains of my actual grandmother. It took her voice. Jobs where paranormal things are part of the job? I ask this because I had a friend who used to work with home security systems as a phone support agent. He told me that during training they show sample calls which at times also show the live footage of what is going on in the customer's house while they are on the line. Well, apparently they showed one call where an old lady was complaining about someone moving things in her home. Apparently the lights went out for a second and a piece of furniture had moved from one end of the room to the other, causing both the customer and phone agent to start freaking out. These occurrences, though rare, were that inevitable that they felt it necessary to show the training class the video. Anyone have anything similar? Mass murderer. I hired drivers for years for a transportation company. I had an applicant I spoke with and asked him to submit an application. His work history was good, driving record good, background clean. He checked out all the way around. I always talked to the applicants a few times and never got a weird vibe of any sort. The time came to have him arrive for his orientation and as usual, I introduced myself and directed him for orientation. Absolutely nothing stood out about this driver. He was neat, presentable, and didn't draw attention to himself. He drove for about a year before he quit. Probably 3 to 6 months after he quit, I see in the news that he led 11 congregation members in a Jewish synagogue. I was absolutely sick to my stomachy. My cat of 15 years went missing a couple years ago, had a comforting dream about him last night. The day my cat, who I spent more than half of my existence with, went missing was incredibly devastating, as one would imagine. Losing him was like losing a lifelong friend. I'm sure many of you can relate. The hard part was that he never came home. The unknown was what was so heartbreaking, but like with everything, time heals all wounds. He left me on May 4th, 2020. Just last week he finally visited me in a dream. I was in a beautiful home that felt like my own and he was there, sitting in a cat tree, one that I always wish I had gotten for him. He looked at me so calmly, slowly blinking the way cats lovingly do. I felt like he was trying to communicate with me that he is in a good place, patiently waiting for me to return to him. Love you, T. My cat still lays on top of me at night. About 9 months ago my cat passed away at only 5 years old, unknown as to how or why. But almost every night when I lay down on my side, it feels like she jumps up on the bed and curls up on my side. I feel the pressure exactly where she used to lay. Not only this, but a few days after she passes, I was laying down getting ready for bed. Looking out at my room, I see a ball of light appear from the underside of my bed and make its way toward me and disappearing. As it disappeared, I felt the same feeling as if she laid down on my side. It is the only thing that gives me closure and I miss my kitty. Fly high, my little one. My cat's afraid to go downstairs. We have 4 cats, all around 2 years old. Every night, we hear them running around, chasing each other upstairs and downstairs, except for this night at around 2:10 a.m. One of our cats is very vocal and wakes me up when she wants something. That night, when she woke me, I followed her to the hallway and noticed all 4 cats looking downstairs, afraid to go down. I have videos of this, but since I can't upload them, I took some screenshots. I decided to go downstairs to check it out, and usually, at least one cat follows me, but not this night. I walked around the house and then came back up. All 4 were still looking down. The cat in the middle of the steps began walking down but stopped halfway, sat for a few seconds, and then walked back upstairs. They must have seen something that I didn't. My daughter is crying. My wife was very tired today preparing for her father's birthday, so I did not wake her at night when my 6-year-old daughter, Laura, who usually sleeps in the next room, appeared at the entrance to our bedroom. I didn't expect this, and in fear, I jumped a little. "I'm scared," she whispered, crying softly. I thought she'd had a nightmare. This had happened before, so I decided to let her sleep next to us to calm her down. A few minutes later, Laura fell asleep with her back to me. From the next room came the sound of a child crying. My daughter's crying. "Daddy," she screamed. Something that was lying next to me slowly turned its head 180 degrees and began to look at me. Instead of eyes, it had black, infinitely deep hollows, and on its face was an eerie and unnaturally wide smile for a human. It said, "Hi, Daddy." My daughter is dreaming about the same man I did at her age. From about age 8 through 16, I had this reoccurring man show up in my dreams, always causing harm to others or chasing me. The locations changed but were all local places I knew, a gas station, relatives' home, etc. I always narrowly escaped. Then the last time I had, he was standing over me on the river bank and the cops run up and get him. He was a man in his 20s with short brown hair, a mustache, light blue jeans, a green and orange flannel and tan work boots. Flash forward, I'm 42 and my 10-year-old daughter is having the same dreams. Just different locations, but the description is almost exact, except she says he's old but not grandpa old. It's so weird, right? Like I never told her the story, so it's creepy that it's happening again, right? Or am I just paranoid AF after some gummies? My dead cousin has been commanding Google Home to play some of her favorite songs. My cousin, F14, just passed away a couple weeks ago. I was very close to her and we play music on my speaker. Last week I was chilling in the living room, out of nowhere TV screen got turned on and went to Hulu under her profile name. No one had the remote, we've looking for the remote for days. Fast forward couple days later. I was laying on my bed, out of nowhere, Google Home started playing some of her favorite songs, 3 songs back to back. I'm freaking out. Never experienced S** like this in my entire life. What do you guys think? Is she trying to send a message or trying to freak me out? Few days before she dies, we watched 2 Paranormal Activity movies and she always tried to scare me. My dog saved my friend and I from a pedophile. It happened when I was 12 or 13 years old. We were visiting our ex-neighbors and took our 2 little dogs with us. At some point after lunch, our parents asked my friend and I to take the dogs out for a walk. While on our way back to the apartment, we saw a creepy dude walking in our direction. His behavior was so weird. Whistling very suspiciously, looking at the sky, with a terrifying grin on his face. I knew it was bad the second my dogs were growling and barking at him, way before he got near us. They never do this, they're so nice and sweet. I suspect they would even greet a thief breaking into our home. We naturally ran away and got back home quickly. Turns out this guy was known in the neighborhood for being a pedophile and had several other mental issues. My fiancé speaks in a foreign language in his sleep, but only know English. I, 54, Chef, and my fiancé, 54, HM, have been together for 7 years now. He talks in his sleep. Every night. But in the last year or so, he has started talking in a foreign language. He only knows English. I know him well enough to know without a doubt he does not speak or know any language but English. The language is not nonsense or like when people speak in tongues. At times it sounds Native American or some kind of African dialect. Definitely not any Latin-derived language. I studied linguistics in college. What he is speaking has syntax and sentence structure. I am trying to find a way to record him. But I can't ever get to my phone in time. Has anyone ever heard of something like this? My little brother came to me in a dream the night he died. A few weeks ago, my 23-year-old brother passed away. It was a sudden death, no warning signs. We are 6 years apart, and we're very close. The night he died, I had a dream we were both at the river. We both would frequently hang out. The water was extremely rough, and the rapids were violent. In my dream, my brother looked at me and said, "Let's go swimming in the rapids." I pleaded with him not to go in, but despite my warnings, he went swimming in the water. The whole rest of my dream, I was following him in the water, trying to catch up. I never did, and then woke up. 2 hours later I found out he died in his sleep. Has anyone else heard or experienced something like this? My sister tragically died 20 years ago. I guess that was my breaking point. You read the title. No matter how much I try to bring her back, she simply won't let me. She was hit by a truck while we were playing as children. The ball fell off our lawn and into the road, and I can't even describe what I saw. I try to bring her back, but it's almost as if, after 10 years, from what it seems, you can't bring people back, and if you try, you won't ever stop trying. I swear I succeeded. I have brought back what looks like her, but doesn't act or sound like her. She struggles in my basement. I can't let her out though. If I do, she'll die, and always when she dies, I just go and grab another one that looks like her, and as long as they look like her, and as long as I am not caught, I will never stop. My son saw my dead mother. My father was fixing up his house to sell, and me and my 4-year-old son stopped at the house to see what he was doing. Let me first say my son never knew his grandmom since she passed away over 6 years before he was born. So we walk into the garage and my son, never been to that house prior, walked in like he owned the place. Walked in the garage, into the kitchen and up the stairs to one of the bedrooms and stood looking at one particular spot in the room. I asked him what he was doing. He said talking to Mom. My mother was sick with cancer and we set that room up as a den so she didn't have to climb the steps. And she sat in the exact spot where he was looking. Also, she did pass away in that house. My son was a pilot in World War II. When my son, now 18, was 3, he used to tell me stories how he flew a plane and he died. I would ask him questions about the plane, the surroundings, and what he wore. He would describe the faces and girls some would paint on their planes. He said his had a scary face painted on it. He would describe in more detail than a 3-year-old should know, about anything really, the leather jacket and brown leather helmet he wore. He also described how he died and never got to say goodbye to his wife. But, he said, he was glad I was his mom now. Loudly crying face, red heart. Update, he doesn't remember a thing about the stories or past life. He might just think I'm crazy. LOL. I tried. Woman shrugging, medium light skin tone. Never doing rideshare again. Today I got into a lift and the driver was an older man, probably in his late 50s, maybe 60s. Anyways, my destination is less than 10 minutes away. A quick trip down the street. He starts making light conversation, how my day is going and the whatnot. I make a joke about I don't even remember, and the next thing he says made my blood run cold instantly. What if I just kidnapped you? I'm silent. Head, bad joke, huh? Yeah, a little bit. At this point I'm just praying to God he takes me home. I start thinking of how to open the door and jump out if need be. Thankfully, I arrived safely at my destination and sent an email to Lyft about the incident. But seriously, what the F***CK? Not sure what this means. When I was 14 I walked into our dining room. My little sister, 8, was standing partially concealed by curtains. I spoke to her and she turned. It was not my sister. The girl was holding a black cat and smiled at me as if she was waiting for me to say something. Then she disappeared. I ran to my mom, scared silly, and told her. My mom is very open to unexplained stuff and never panics. Fast forward 15 years and I am married with 2 daughters, 8 and 2. I walk into the living room and see my oldest standing partially concealed behind the drapes. I speak to her and she turns. She smiles expectantly as she strokes Shadow, our black cat. She doesn't disappear LOL, but she is the girl I saw at 14 in my childhood home. I tell my mom and she says, well, there you go. Mystery solved. 1 week before my boyfriend passed away, my boyfriend and I woke up on a Sunday morning. He told me, I saw something creepy last night. I woke up and saw someone standing over the bed looking at you. I questioned him on it, and he said he was right there, motioning towards the foot of the bed, but to the side, my side, and then he said, I sat up and he just backed away. I remember thinking that was creepy. Then my boyfriend passed away. Single vehicle car accident. It wasn't until I realized that he passed away exactly 1 week after he saw this man looking at me, that I gave this a second thought. Think it was him somehow? It reminds me of the bent-neck lady off Haunting of Hill House. If you've seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about. Phenomena in Afghanistan during deployment. Any veterans ever experience anything over there? I know I did. There is a lot of S** to read about, but I'm talking about real S** you saw for yourself, or stuff that happened that you can't explain and won't explain. I don't know where to start, but where our outpost was, the local elders eventually told us it was a burial ground. But I remember these tall skinny figures with red eyes at night. You could see their figure a little more with the nods, nighttime ocular device. It was crazy. We would get shelled out of nowhere, just like one mortar shell out of nowhere. And our surveillance intel would tell us there are no body signatures for 20 square miles. There is so much more. But I'm more interested in hearing anyone else's experiences. Photographs. I look out at my children, and how they play with their children. I stare into the living room, completely frozen. I haven't blinked for years and my eyes are like sandpaper. My arm hurts like hell from holding a beer. My nose and lungs are congested from the smoke produced by the barbecue next to me. For being 85, I don't look a day over 40. My grandson, now 15, walks over to me. I try to call for help, but my mouth is stuck in a smile. He leans down and kisses me on the forehead. I miss you, Grandpa. He walks away, leaving me on the mantelpiece above the fireplace. Some say people are immortalized by film and photographs. But believe me, living forever like this is worse than hell.